Asus just released their latest flagship devices, the Asus Zenfone 5 and the Zenfone 5Z, and were kind enough to give me a little bit of time with each of the devices before they were released, so I figured I would try to do one of my complete walkthroughs. Now, if you aren't familiar, these complete walkthrough series of mine, I basically go through every feature on the device that I possibly can. This way it gives you the most information possible should you maybe in the future want to go buy the device. So with that said, let's get started. First, we need to just say that the Zenfone 5 and the 5Z are basically identical in terms of features, looks, etc. The only difference, apparently, is that the Z model will come with a different Qualcomm chipset and a higher RAM and storage option. Now, for the design, they are both made out of an aluminum body and come in a midnight blue or meteor silver. One of the first things that you'll notice about the device is, of course, the infamous notch. Asus explained that they went with the notch design simply because it meant more real estate for the screen in the two corners next to it instead of just cutting it off. Now, the front screen, though, does have a pretty large 6.2-inch FHD Plus IPS LCD display in a 19:9 aspect ratio. Asus says that it'll hit 500 nits, and from the short time that I had it, I have to admit it's pretty darn bright. Above the screen, in the notch, we have an 83 degrees field of view 8 megapixel f2.0 aperture camera for selfies. Now at the top of the device, we have nothing. On the left side, we have our dual SIM micro SD card slot combo. On the right, we have our volume rocker and power button. And at the bottom, we have our USB-C port that supports fast charging, and we have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Moving to the back, we have our center positioned fingerprint scanner, which, by the way, you can supplement with a facial unlock feature as well. And above that, we have our dual cameras. Now, the main one is a 12 megapixel Sony dual pixel sensor with an f1.8 aperture lens and an 83 degree field of view with optical image stabilization. And our other is a 120 degree field of view wide angle 8 megapixel f2.2 aperture camera. And diving into the camera software itself, we have an AI auto scene detection built in that will recognize 16 different scenes and automatically adjust the camera settings to try and take the best shot of that particular scene. We have some settings on the left that include a flash control, a timer, portrait mode that blurs out the background using the two different cameras on the back to judge depth, changing of the aspect ratio of the photo, and a control to turn HDR off and on. On the other side, we have access to our Pro mode, which lets you manually control all of the camera settings. Tapping on the settings icon in the camera will give us access to things like the resolution, timestamp, an Asus watermark. Not sure why you would ever want that. Touch shutter, which allows you to tap the screen to take a photo instead of the shutter button. Change the video resolution, turn on grids to better line up shots, camera sound off and on. Again, not sure why you would ever want that on. Location services to add or remove location data from the photo, anti-flicker, setting the volume key as a shortcut for various options where you would want to save the photos if you have a micro SD card installed, and double tapping the power button to launch the camera, which is my preferred method of launching a camera on an Android device, frankly. Now moving on to audio, the device has dual stereo speakers, each with their own amp, and they definitely get pretty loud. The Zenfone 5 and 5Z also support high-res audio and DTS Headphones 7.1 surround sound, and the devices have Bluetooth 5.0, and I was told that they support Qualcomm aptX HD, which means that they'll be able to do high-res audio over Bluetooth as well to a supported headset. Powering the device is either a Qualcomm Snapdragon 636 chipset paired with up to 6 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM on the 5, or the Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 chipset paired with up to 8 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM on the 5Z. You can get the 5 in 64 gigs of storage or the 5Z in 64, 128, or 256 gigs. But these storage sizes and RAM are subject to change by market, I was told. Powering both of them is a 3300 milliamp battery with fast charging support. Now moving on to the software, the phone is running Android Oreo and the much more subdued, thankfully, Zen UI 5.0. Asus was also pretty good about pre-installed apps. They basically told us that if Google or Android already had an equivalent, they weren't going to make their own, which I appreciate. So that means like Chrome, they didn't make their own browser. The keyboard, they're using Gboard, etc. With that said though, they do have their own skinned calculator, clock, contacts, sound recorder, weather, their version of Dropbox called web storage, a file manager, their photo gallery, mobile manager, which is their memory, data, and storage assistant, themes, which is their theme store, obviously, and Selfie Master. Now, Selfie Master has a bunch of options for adjusting your face on camera, including a video mode with real-time beautification, if you're into that sort of thing, a camera mode for the same thing, but for stills, and a live mode, which can do the same, but for various social media live services. Now, also in here is the Asus Zenfone, which weren't working at the time of the demo, but basically use facial tracking to put various characters over your face, and that you can then record and send to friends, but also can use in video calls and use on live social media sites. Now, speaking of social media sites, the only third-party apps Asus added to the device are Facebook and Instagram, which I personally would put on myself. So, not bad. There you go, guys, as many features as I could possibly go through in the short time that I had with the device. Let me know what you guys think of this complete walkthrough series of this phone itself, or these phones. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below. If you did like this video, though, please thumbs up it or share it. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you're not subscribed, please do so. Also appreciated. And don't forget to click the bell next to the word subscribe so you actually get notified when I do new videos. Otherwise, you basically just won't. And regardless, as always, thanks for watching.